progress there. Now it's time to have a look at what is grabbing headlines around the world. Solange Mougin is joining us for the press review. And Solange is starting with that story we started off in the news bulletin, that decision by lawmakers from Emmanuel Macron's party to rewrite Article 24 of the global security law here.
Yeah, and to describe this sort of U-turn by the government, the regional paper Républicain Lorraine actually used a military term to describe this on its front page. Arrière toute, or backward march, it said about Article 24, which brought tens of thousands of people across France out into the streets to protest this past weekend. Now, they fear, these people, the protesters fear it would infringe on Article 24 would infringe on press freedom and the ability to film police brutality, sort of create a sort of stopgap against that. But the left-leaning paper L'Humanité says the rewrite U-turn is a scam. The paper does hail the decision to redraft Article 24 a success, but it says the decision is at heart just a trick to get the growing movement against it and against police brutality to pipe down. Now, it calls for the protest to continue and for the entire law to be scrapped.
And we shall see what happens. There's also a lot of discussion in the press, isn't there, about France's interior minister. We see him there. He's been the main backer of this bill and of France's police as well.
Yeah, La Croix discusses Gérald Darmanin's speech yesterday before the National Assembly, where he had to answer questions about the bill and about a brutal video of police violence that emerged last Friday, to which Darmanin admitted there are structural problems within the French police force and called reforms to it, as well as to the body that investigates police violence. But will that work to appease all this? Well, according to L'Opinion, Emmanuel Macron is, quote, furious about the fiasco, end quote. He feels that the majority of French people are for the law, but that his interior minister has started a fire that may not be easy to put out. And in that vein, L'Opinion's illustrator CAC has Darmanin posing as Romain Grosjean, the Formula One driver, who narrowly escaped death of his burning race car, telling his boss, maybe I took too hard of a right turn, as in catering to the far-right voters may wreck the entire Macron party, which you see there as the car in the background.
Yeah, clever way of doing it. Let's have another story from France now. The press is also discussing the rollout of the vaccination program here and who will get the vaccines first once they become available.
Yeah, and as La Dépêche describes it, it's countdown time, referring here to the French government's plan to unveil its vaccination strategy in the coming days, with the French health authorities saying that seniors and nursing home residents are likely to be first to be vaccinated. Now, it's time, dear senior. That is the headline of today's Libération. Instead of dear sir, it's dear senior. Wordplay there of what will be a massive logistic, political, and social undertaking that it will be to vaccinate the entire country.
What about other nations, Solange? How are they dealing with the political, the health, the economic challenges that coronavirus is creating?
Well, as the Daily Telegraph shows us, today could be a rough day for Boris Johnson. A number of MPs of his own party are expected to vote against his coronavirus tier rating system. Now, this system will likely pass, but the Telegraph notes that the rebellion will, quote unquote, dent Johnson's authority. It would put some 99% of England into the two top hot zone areas. Now, it's not just the UK that is in these red zones. The New York Times has a stunning piece today entitled The Long Darkness Before Dawn, in which, through photographs and many chapters, it explains how the U.S. is about to enter a 3-month period that experts say is, quote, going to be just horrific, end quote, noting that there are 1 million cases a week already and that there are projections that the over 250,000 death toll could double by March, a grim reckoning that has begun, the Times says, where, quote, our failure to protect ourselves has caught up with us, end quote.
Now, some good news. We need some after that. Solange, scientists saying that they've made a breakthrough that could change everything, apparently.
Yeah, it may not actually be an exaggeration. We'll have to wait and see. This is a mystery that scientists have been trying to deal with and crack for the past 50 years. And artificial intelligence, through a group called DeepMind, may have just figured it out. Now, what has DeepMind, Google's deeper learning program, done? Well, they've used the programs that they use for playing chess and games, and they put that into sort of biological proteins. Now, this is where it gets a little complex. Stay with me.
Okay.
biological proteins, you have to think of them as sort of the building blocks to everything, okay? And they're folded in these like really tiny origami-like ways. And you unfold them, and then you understand what's going on. And so you can then fix it if something's wrong. Well, as science explains, AI has figured a way to how to unfold these different proteins reliably well. And you could take all that information and say, for example, make new medicines for diseases we don't have medicines for. Or you could do things like make more nutritious crops or green enzymes that could break down plastic. So there are potentially some very cool changes happening there in science.
Cross your fingers, cross your fingers. We need some positive news in the world. Here's another bit of positive news from Solange. She's found an article about another scientific discovery, just as important as the last one. This one, though, is a little bit more intimate, isn't it?
It is. I'm not so sure it's that important. We'll see. You never know. And it is intimate for dinosaurs. Now, most of the stuff we know about dinosaurs comes from fossils and bones, but the soft, fleshy parts of their physiques, well, we don't know much about that. Except scientists have found a fossil that included patches of skin and scales and ornamental bristles around its tail, which means that we can now depict, yes, I know you always wanted to know this, the hind end, i.e. the anus of dinosaurs. We now know what their buttholes look like.
Yes, and you've covered it up. Or the paper has anyway. So we know what they look like, but we can't show you. Typical. Thank you, Solange. Solange Michel with the papers on France 24.